Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the August 16 JupyterLab weekly call. My name is Andrew Yaroshenko and I'm hosting today. Please find the link to the agenda in the chat. I have sent it a couple of times before starting the recording. So probably you're already aware about the link, but anyway, let's start. So first on the agenda is Gabriel. You're up.
Hello, everyone. So in the notes, I've linked the issue that I created on the Team Compass. And it's basically, I want to get people together to brainstorm ideas for various issues that have to do with keyboard navigation in JupyterLab. Some of them specifically about accessibility, some of them a little bit broader. Really, they're all about accessibility at the end of the day. But one thing I wanted to ask in this group is, well, I kind of wanted to just check to see if anyone thought it was like a bad idea. One thing I should mention is I was thinking about advertising it not only here in this meeting, but also the accessibility meeting, and also posting a link to Discourse to invite people who hang out there, because I think could be very useful to get feedback from people outside of this room who also care about keyboard stuff in the UI. I have also put up I've been thinking about trying to come up with a date. I want to get this done before the end of August. And so right now, the times I'm thinking that might make most sense would be immediately after this meeting next week or the following week. So I'm just putting those questions to the room. If anyone wants to speak up about them now, or they can wait till later.
I guess feedback about the time frame would make sense to give asynchronously, right? Because too many people, different availability, for example, works for me, for example. Yeah, I posted in the thread referencing the workshop that Gabriela and Odin hosted. So it's in the thread if it might be relevant, I thought. So yeah, please.
Can I ask you what you just said? What did you just say about asynchronous versus synchronous?
I think that for call participants to provide a feedback about their availability, it's best to do that asynchronously in the thread, right? Currently there are 12 people online. I don't think there is a purpose in going one by one.
No. I think it's more, my question is, I don't see anything happening on the calendar after this event, but I just wanted to, if anyone else in this room knows otherwise, to be like, oh no, that doesn't work. If anyone in this room is like, oh, that doesn't work, I'm just kind of getting a soft check on that. But otherwise, yeah, I will post on the issue to try to get feedback for people on a time.
So all public events are all Jupyter public events are on the calendar. So there is no public event scheduled after that, but maybe there are some other events. And again, maybe individual availability might be playing in here. But yeah. Okay. Does anyone else has anything to say here about what Gabriel was saying? Anything to add? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Gabriel. Let's go to the next speaker, to the next topic, and it's Frederick. You're up.
Hey everybody, I've done a release of a patch version of JupyterLab. Mainly it solves the Galata issue for people using it in extension. There are some issue left with the Galata helpers file browser open. I have opened a follow-up PR to fix that one too, but hopefully it won't hit too many people. And following up also on the previous week discussion, I have updated the proposal for member rights, taking into account the suggestion of Brian to remove the inactive member status. I also switched to propose to ping for membership activity on the private conceal repo instead of the public one. The main idea is that to avoid leaking too often who is part of the release team, who is part of the admin team, so that hackers don't know so easily who to hack. So that's the idea. So feel free to go to the PR to comment about that. Yes, that's the PR. And then on Mermaid, so as I said last week, the vote is already, we reached majority. Is just a reminder that the official deadline is August 20th, and there are some people that haven't voted. So yeah, just to let them a chance to vote. And that's all on my side.
Awesome, thank you, Frederick. Links are in the agenda for everything that Frederick was talking about. Would anyone like to speak up about anything Frederick said? Maybe questions or additional discussion? No. Okay, thank you. Let's proceed to the next speaker. Eli, you're up.
Hey y'all, I know most of you have heard this already, so I'll keep it brief, but Bloomberg is hosting another Open Studio Day, this time in New York City on Monday, August 28th. I will be there. Several folks will. Really looking forward to seeing, hopefully some of you. This is, for anyone who hasn't been before and hasn't heard me say it, a very unstructured, very informal day for the Jupyter community to come together across different projects and work or talk or connect on anything. It's a great opportunity for newer contributors to sort of get their feet wet and connect with the community. It's a great opportunity for more established contributors to work together in person and just catch up. So yeah, hoping to see some of y'all there. Please reach out to me if you have any questions.
That's good stuff. I would go if I would be in New York, so I would suggest everyone who are in New York to go. Yeah. So, is there any questions or comments about this beautiful event? No. Okay. Well, we're at the end of our agenda. So I'd like to ask if anyone would like to discuss anything on the record, anything that is not on the agenda. Because if not, I will stop the recording.
I can toss in an obligatory plug for triage meeting. Triage is every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Normally August is a pretty low time for issues, but we had, I think, about 20 issues to go through in JupyterLab, Jupyter Notebook, and Jupyter Desktop yesterday. So even if you feel like you're not particularly familiar with all of those, or even any of those, join in and you can help us investigate and take a look at anything new. So that's Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Thank you, Jason. It's a great meeting, 9 a.m. Pacific. You can find it on calendar on Tuesday in your local time zone. So please join if you can. Is there anything else you would like to discuss before I turn off the recording?
I've been doing some research that I haven't shared with anybody that might be relevant to JupyterLab.
Please.
If anybody would like to see it. This is very basic research, but I remember getting a strong response from Fred a while ago when I showed semantic HTML, so I know at least there's one nerd on the call who cares about this. All right.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in user research.
Okay. This actually hits on keyboard navigation and stuff like that. And I'm glad this is getting recorded this way. I can potentially reference it. So I wrote a blog post about what I'm going to share here. And the goal of this work here is thinking about accessible representations of code. So if you go into like a code element that's like normally shown in a cell, and you look at this thing on a screen reader, oops, everything's going to heck over here. How do I undo? I got unclick that. Sorry, I just got to get my docs in place here. All right, doc to the bottom. Okay, so if we like look inside of this here, this code element, all of the representations that we get from like pigments and stuff like that, they're a bunch of spans. And if I activate a screen reader, the spans let me go like left and right with the arrow keys. But like if I've got more than like 5 or 10 lines in a notebook, which we had in the Notebooks for All project. So in some of these Notebooks for All notebooks here, we would have like 100, we had like 70 or 80 or so cells, and some of them got really long. So ones like this here are just like remarkable run-on sentences, and they're really kind of hard to debug accessibility wise. So what I wanted to explore was what it would be like to add some more structure to code, right? So this is some pigments code. This is just like this only works for Python modules at the moment, so it's not like really Jupyter special. But what I've gone and done is I've done some pre-processing work, and now if I start tabbing through this code and we inspect this element here, the element is defined as a heading with ARIA level 2. And the space outside of it is defined as a region now. So if we go and we were to look at the accessibility of this thing, now it's kind of the situation here is that every assignment, every import from is actually a group, and they can be navigated with a screen reader. This is all invisible structure. This is invisible semantics, right? And then when we get down to things that are regions, for example, these are landmarks. So they actually would show up in a screen reader and would add to navigation. So what was interesting is that if we go and take this whole concept and we apply it to an entire page, now we can see that from the role and the heading structure that we can make a table of contents for the code that we do see in a lot of places. But when we think about the table of contents in the notebook, we can also think about, or the table of contents of the narrative, we can also think about combining the table of contents of the narrative with the table of contents of the code to make like a super table of contents, which would be more cohesive with this idea of literate programs that we're venturing to. So a couple of things that this did at the end of the day is it improved the accessible structure of this. It added semantics to it, but it also adds keyboard navigation. One of the things that we have a habit with is like thinking about these like lo-fi representations as being static. But when you go and add links and stuff like that, they become interactive. You start adding tabs, you start adding different ways, different stop points and stuff like that in the document. So this research put some hidden semantic structure into the code, which I think when combined with the narrative would actually make a really complementary document as a whole. Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about, just adding a little bit more structure to the pre and code tags. I didn't realize that you could put like span level tag, like more span level information in there. KBD, SAMP, code, all span, all of those things go in there. But I think we can do a little bit better. And maybe, you know, at the end of the day, this gives you more places to put IDs, more places to reference people to in the document. It actually makes like a much richer document from what we're working with. So, yeah. I'll stop. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Tony. That's an interesting idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting approach to the problem. That's pretty cool.
So I'm guessing that since we have syntax highlighting for stuff like Python in JupyterLab, what's going on here is that somebody, you know, is parsing the code at a semantic level or some library, and then it's it's taking that, and all it's doing in the markup is like giving like decorative markup, and it's not actually putting any semantics on anything it puts out in the HTML. So at the end, so it sounds like we probably have to at some point like modify the syntax highlighters, right? If I'm following.
Yeah, exactly that. So right now, like pigments is, like you said, only for style. So I can't know when a function starts and stops, for example, right? Like that's actually a complicated parser to write. Some languages might have better features than this. You know, a list would be different. But for, say, object-oriented programming, Julia and Python, you know, some augmented parser that has this information would definitely improve the quality of everything. Yeah, it really kind of improves sort of everything, I think. And it raises like, yeah.
We could actually combine it with the LSP features that build like agnostically the structure of the code.
Right. The pigments parser the pigments tokenizer doesn't have the level of information that we need to do this, right? Like it's recognizing keywords and like span level arguments, not doing block level things. So if the else if schema can give, you know, delimiters for the open and close of a function, like one of the other things I'm doing is comments become paragraph, have a role of paragraph. Doc strings have a role of paragraph. Doc test outputs have this samp tag. So there's a lot of different like little nuances and stuff that you can do there. But yeah, hopefully else if has a better parser, and that would help with the right level of information to put this in there. What do you mean encode mirror won't, Nick?
Well, so I guess we've discussed this before. The what you are trying to do with a extremely performance tuned parser is at odds with the level of deep introspection that you want. So you would not want to redo all of this every keystroke inside of an edited document. I'm just, you know, that the parsers do not want to do that for you. And you actually want to write different kinds of parsers that will fail at most the rest of the line and not break the rest of your document. Otherwise, you get this horrible flickering effect that if, you know, you open a print in the bad place and the rest of your document goes straight to hell, right? So that's why, like, if you look at, you know, other tools that we cite often that are sort of open source, they use two different parsers. They have an Oniguruma based one, and then they have a whatever the hell your language server is implemented in, and they provide different kinds of information at different velocities. You know, you're not. It's not that you're not blocking a keystroke. You're not blocking the next keystroke for syntax highlighting in either of the modern editors that would be considered in this for our purposes. But perceptually you are, because you start typing and then the color changes and now you're little lizard brain is like, shit, what did I do? So there are definitely some challenges there, but there's a lot of opportunities here, right? This is almost identical to the problem that we're having with Markdown, where Markdown itself is not good for addressing things. You don't want to be trying to point at places in a Markdown document, except for at the purely structural level, which is by line, and maybe by headers, because everybody does. Well, no, not even everybody does headers the same way. Never mind, I didn't say that. I'm looking at you, front matter, that uses the same syntax as an H2. The triple dash underneath the line, but the white space you got to get just right. So yeah, if you thought about this more of when I'm in an editor and it is active, I am getting this other parser. I'm getting the thing like, let's ignore semantic markup where the other semantic highlighting where a variable name appears the same everywhere that it appears. So if your kernel could give you back this level of asked information, and it can only be the kernel because language servers cannot predict the crazy junk that we do inside of notebooks like Magix and all that other nonsense. This is just like what a Markdown parser should be expected to do, right? That would give us back HTML. So, right now we have code cells and they have output, and we have Markdown cells and they just have source. Code cells and Markdown cells probably need a presentation with a concept of a presentation that is, when I hit save on a notebook that has outputs, I want to be able to link to the outputs, and I want the outputs to be able to link to the things that made them, and all that other cool inventing on principle stuff that Brett Victor showed us a decade ago, right? But we just don't, they're not all the same system, unless you take the entire client as the system. So those are. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're right. I'm saying it would be hard to do in the architecture that we have today.
So I think there's a good thing in this, though, right? Because one of the things this is motivated by is that the screen reader has two modes. It's got browse mode and it's got focus mode, which are distinct different modes, right? So like focus mode is when you're filling out a form and browse mode is when you're navigating this thing. So if I'm in focus mode, I'm not in browse mode. So I don't actually need this feature. I know where I am, right? So like in theory, when you leave a form or you escape a form, these things can be computed because now you're in a browse mode. So there might actually be, it might be that the modes are distinct enough that you wouldn't need this on a key press. You'd really need this on a render.
Nick, please continue.
No, they're just on different life cycles, right? One of them is
absolutely
optimized work as fast as you can possibly get it to me, and every 10 milliseconds makes your application feel worse, versus the other one, which is as reproducible as possible. Every time you change one of those IDs to be, assign -L35 and it becomes assign -L36 because I ran a linter somewhere else, that's a problem, that's all.
Okay, Nick, I wanted to ask, when you were speaking, you referenced some stuff that had implementations of some features that you were talking about 10 years ago. What was that? I wanted to ask for my curiosity to look it up.
I don't know.
Okay.
Inventing on principle. It was a talk. Yeah, it was a talk that Brett Victor gave a long time ago. When was it? Was it a Strange Loop talk or something like that? It was 11 years ago now, so 2012-ish. But this was kind of seeded the vision for a lot of interactive programming. He had a cool project called Tangle.js that talked about reactive documents, before pretty much everybody else was.
I see. Thank you, Tony.
And I think he works on Dynamic Land, right, Nick? Some folks from the project got to visit there a while ago, right?
Yeah, a little trip down memory lane. So we were out at the Jupyter All Hands meeting back when All Hands was like countable in a room. And one of our emeritus lovely people called up Brett Victor, who doesn't like to talk to people generally, you know. And he invited us all over. And so like a few people were stuck back at the mothership working on getting JupyterLab out. But everybody else went to Dynamic Land, and we had just this magical experience. And so imagine if your widgets were physical objects, and your mouse event handlers were computer vision, but you know, for lack of a better word, they were magic. That if you moved something around on a table, then something happened in your code, and it's pretty magnificent. I've pitched a couple times to try and get some of that stuff, but yeah, that's just a little quick down memory lane. The pictures don't really do Dynamic Land justice, and it's really a thing that unfortunately you have to walk up and try to get a concept of what it'd be like.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, is there any other comments or questions about this discussion? If not, is there any other things you'd like to discuss before I will finish the recording? Okay, I guess it's not. There are not. So none. So I will stop the recording right now. So the sound will play. As they say, brace yourself.